updated the doomsday clock to show we may be closer to the end of the world. It largely factors in nuclear weapons. Last night, President Trump said having the nuclear codes is sobering and scary, but he is confident he will make the right decisions. The clock had been set at 3 minutes to midnight. The 12 o'clock hour represents the destruction of human civilization. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist magazine first set the clock 70 years ago. It's been adjusted 21 times since. Chris Van Cleve is at the National Press Club in Washington, where this year's clock was just unveiled. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. Just moments ago, that doomsday clock moved forward 30 seconds and now stands at 2.5 minutes before midnight. That's the closest to midnight, or the end of the world, as it's been in 64 years, showing that this panel has real concerns about what the future may hold.
We're talking about a metaphor. We're not literally minutes from the end of the world.
Well, it is a metaphor, but we are literally minutes away from a nuclear exchange should someone press a button.
The doomsday clock ticked 30 seconds closer to midnight, in part, the experts say, because it's President Donald Trump's finger on the button.
Prior to taking office, he called for the U.S. to strengthen and expand its nuclear capability. Does the election of a new president who might be more hawkish, is that grounds for moving the clock?
Those are the issues that the Science and Security Board take into consideration. We very rarely make a decision based on an individual.
The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists debuted the clock in 1947, setting the initial time at 7 minutes to midnight because, according to the artist who designed it, quote, "it looked good to my eye." The hands came the closest to midnight, 2 minutes away, in 1953, after the U.S. and the Soviet Union tested their first hydrogen bombs.
This seems to me to be more a day for a searching of the human soul, perhaps, than for any kind of scientific celebration.
We were the furthest from annihilation in 1991, with 17 minutes to spare, after the signing of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty at the end of the Cold War. But they acknowledge they once got it wrong. The year of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, the clock moved back to 12 minutes to midnight.
That's the one that when we look back across our whole time series is the one that we'd say they didn't know all the information at that point.
If that clock ticks closer to midnight, are you going to lose any sleep?
No, I'm not going to lose any sleep. I don't think we're near an apocalypse.
Bill Gertz writes about national security for the Washington Times and is publishing a new book which details the continuing threat of nuclear weapons. He sees the doomsday clock as more of a political barometer.
In a lot of ways, the doomsday clock is being used by the liberal left to try to promote its agenda for nuclear disarmament, for greater efforts to control climate change and other elements.
We've moved it for Republicans and Democrats, and most recently under a Democratic administration.
There are some that are going to say all you're doing is creating panic at a time when there's a lot of uncertainty.
Our goal isn't to create panic, but it is to say this is very serious and there's things that we can do. And if we can have that conversation, that would be very productive.
Saying words matter, the panel expressed real concern over comments President Trump has made about nuclear weapons and climate change, but also about developments in China, Russia, North Korea, India, and Pakistan, as well as for the first time talking seriously about cyber threats, including cyber terrorism and hacking as a way to undermine democracy.
Chris, thanks.
Could they come up with another word besides doomsday? Let's start with that.
I know, it sounds like you gotta be
Very ominous.
very ominous.
I know lots of people who worry about some nuclear accident more than they worry about anything.
Anything else in the economy or anything.
Stealing it or some accident or some computer going wrong. So.
God is good. All the time. All the time. Did you notice how old that video was by any chance? That's a year old. That's from January 2017. So the doomsday clock is going to be adjusted again by the end of this month. Wonder what they're going to set it to. Right? So last January, it was set to 2.5 minutes till midnight. Did you catch what Trump's first tweet of the year was? It was directed towards Kim Jong over in North Korea, and he said, would someone please remind him someone in that impoverished, famine country that my button is bigger and my button works. And of course, everyone freaked out because that's basically saber rattling, right? That's basically saying, I have nuclear arms and I'm not afraid to use them. That video is a year old. I tried to find the most recent one, and since they're going to release the date this month, or the time, there isn't a new one. What has happened over the past 6 or 8 months as far as nuclear weapons are concerned? North Korea is picking up steam. So Trump responds to everything that's happening over there with my button is bigger and mine works. And so are we on the brink of a nuclear war?
No, I don't think so.
No? All right. Well, I'm going to offer the invitation now. I'm done. Are we on the brink of nuclear war? Betty says no. I sure hope not. And does nuclear war mean Armageddon? Would World War III, would nuclear war, would that be the end of the world as we know it? So I was born in the late 60s. I grew up in, I would say, the depth of the Cold War. It was very much on everyone's radar. I can remember in grade school when they still had schools that had nuclear bomb shelters in them, and we did nuclear bomb drills. And as an adult, I can say there's nothing about getting down on your hands and knees under your desk and getting in a fetal position that's going to save you from a nuclear bomb. Right? And take that a step further. Getting in a bomb shelter, what good is that going to do? Right? Because the world is going to be in a nuclear winter for who knows how many years. So when you get out of that bomb shelter, but being in concrete, you know, if you want a nuclear bomb shelter, see the after church.
This is a commercial.
Today's sermon is brought to you by Congregate Bomb Shelters. They're a real blast. I just made that up, Chris. So, North Korea, they've got a nuclear bomb, and they said they can land it wherever they want in America. Trump says, my button is bigger, and it works. And the great relationship that we had with Russia has really gotten worse lately. So, I don't know if you've noticed, England, this was in the news just a week or two ago, England had to escort who out of the English Channel? Russian spy ships. So their Navy, English Navy went and escorted their ships out of the channel. So Russia has done some flybys on our carriers, getting very close. They're trying to make signs of aggression. That's our carriers, not the English carriers, but American carriers. So relationships are tense across the globe. Are we on the brink of nuclear war? Does this mean that it's the end of the world? If you had a chance to read along with Wendy in Revelation chapter 16, I invite you to open your Bibles there or get your smartphone app or think about this text for just a moment. Because this is the key passage, right? This is the only verse in the entire Bible that has the word Armageddon. I don't know if you knew that or not. This is the only place in the Bible where we see Armageddon, and we associate the word Armageddon with what? Def Leppard. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Okay. So, other than Carl, we associate the word Armageddon with what? The end, right? This is the battle that is, well, if that were the case, this is chapter 16. There's still a few more chapters left in Revelation, so we know, A, that's not the end of time. But, getting ahead of ourselves there. So, Revelation chapter 16, the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates. What was the river? What is the river Euphrates? Why is that significant in this chapter? If you don't know that, then there's no way that you can know that this is the end of time. The river Euphrates is the furthest east of the Roman Empire. Okay? So, John is writing to who? seven churches of Asia, right? Ephesus, Laodicea, Sardis, all, et cetera, right? So when he says the great rivers Euphrates, their mental geography map takes them to, okay, that's the furthest extent of the Roman Empire that I live in at this time, right? So the angel pours out his bowl, and the bowl signified what in the book of Revelation? Disasters, right? There's some type of wrath. It's outpouring, right? So he pours out the bowl on the great river, and its waters were dried up. Well, that's got to be a nuclear bomb, right? End of subject, right? That bomb went off and it dried up that river, right? So to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Then I saw three impure spirits that looked like frogs, which is why I don't pick up frogs today, right? Not just that you'll get warts, but John says they look like. Okay, so we've got frogs, and they came out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So who are these four groups that John lists out here? Well, if you read all the book of Revelation, you know that the dragon is who? Satan. It's very clear. He is the dragon, he is the serpent of old, he's the devil. So that's plain and simple. So we know that this represents Satan. Who is the beast? Does anyone remember who the beast was in the book of Revelation? President Obama, if you were a Republican, right? If you grew up in the 80s and you were a fundamentalist, it was the Pope. If you were any kind of Christian in the 30s, it was Adolf Hitler. All through time, we have tried to stick someone from a culturally relevant perspective and say, that's the beast, and we are on the verge of it at the time. Well, who is the beast and who is the false prophet? Well, the false prophet, obviously, when you read through the book of Revelation, he is the one who is supporting the beast. So, who is the beast in this particular story? The beast is the nation of Rome. So, the nation of Rome, if you read through the context of the book of Revelation, they are under the influence of the dragon, and the false prophet is the one who helps people along in their emperor worship and their deification. Julius Caesar, right? Ides of March. What happens to him when Brutus comes to him and he says, "Hey, Brute, you too, Brutus"? What happens to him?
Die.
He's killed by who? The Senate. Senate is bad. Okay, we know that, right? So he's killed. But what happens by the time of Christ? Right? So that's what? 40-something BC when Caesar is killed? What happens by the time of Christ? Julius Caesar is a god. Isn't it interesting? He's killed, and so he's deified. The number of the beast, right? No one can buy or sell. What's the number of the beast in the book of Revelation? It's got to be barcodes on our grocery stuff now, right? It's that chip that the government put in the back of my neck when I was born and no one told me. The number of the beast really is a historical piece of paper. You had to offer a libation. You had to do some type of worship to the Roman gods before you could get a certificate to buy or sell. And it was proof of your allegiance and your loyalty to the Roman gods. Right? The beast is Rome. The false prophet promotes the worship of emperor worship and of Rome. Well, who are the frogs? Well, they're obviously mouthpieces for the false prophet. They're propagandists. They're people who are spreading the message. So, demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the whole world and gather them for the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Look, I come like a thief, Jesus says, right? Blessed is the one who stays awake and remains clothed, so as not to go naked, be shamefully exposed, because Jesus says time and time again, the end is going to be just like in the days of Noah. People are going to be getting married, given in marriage, and all of a sudden, boom. I'm going to come like a thief in the night. If the master of the house knew that the thief was coming, he'd be prepared, right? And the thief did. So it's going to happen when you don't know. Well, I know that the end is coming because Trump's button is bigger and he's not afraid to use it. So I know when the end is no. So we don't know when the end is going to be, but they gathered together to the place in Hebrew that is called Armageddon. So what is Armageddon? Literally, it means the mountain of Megiddo. So in the Hebrew mindset in the Old Testament, well, let me backtrack for a second. If I say to you, someone is in big trouble, they're having a conflict at work, And there's a big problem, and I say, well, that's going to be that guy's Waterloo. What am I saying? It's his defeat. He's not really Napoleon. He's not really with Cornwall. There's not really a battle in Europe. I just say that's his Waterloo, and you know that he's about to get wiped out. If I make a reference to, oh, that's a Gettysburg, what comes to your mind when I say the word Gettysburg? You don't even know who won the Battle of Gettysburg, probably, but you know what? Both sides lost thousands of people, right? The Hebrews, when they hear Megiddo, they're going to go all the way back, for starters, to Joshua chapter 12. Joshua chapter 12, you haven't read in a long time, I imagine. But you probably don't remember how many nations were conquered in that chapter, 31 of them. The last one that's mentioned is the king of Megiddo. Big battle, important victory. All right? The only female leader in the book of Judges was Deborah. And who does she fight? Canaanites. Where does she beat them? Megiddo. Several, at least 4 battles that I can think of, are fought on the plains of Megiddo, not far from Mount Carmel. But there are a couple of times where the catastrophes are enormous. This is metaphorical language. Is this really trying to tell us that there's a dragon? No. John clearly identifies the dragon as Satan. Does he want us to really believe that Satan has scales like armor and a tail, and he breathes out fire, and he flies around and steals virgins from villages and hides in a cave till the knight in shining armor comes to save her? Is that? No. It's metaphorical. It's language of imagery. He's not trying to talk about a physical location. Because first of all, Megiddo is nowhere near the river Euphrates. It's a different place, but it brings something to their mind. So, John talks about the mountain of Megiddo. Now, this is not a literal physical battle. That's not what he's trying to talk about. He's talking about a spiritual battle. But, a lot of people are worried, is this the end of time? There's a lot that's going on. And you and I need to ask ourselves a very important question. Who in this great world of ours would want Western civilization to collapse? You probably enjoy living in a capitalistic country. You can go to work. If you work hard, you will be. You'll be successful. You'll be rewarded. Whatever. Right? If you make use of your effort and your energy, and you go out and you get a job, you'll more than likely have gas in your car, food in your fridge, internet. Right? You have a public library. You've got running water. I like running water. By the way, when it's cold out like this, I open the cabinet doors in the kitchen, because any exterior wall with plumbing in it where I come from freezes when it gets cold out. I don't know about here, but I'm not taking any chances. I like running water. I like toilets that flush. I like Western civilization. But can you believe it? There are people out there that want our civilization to collapse. Who would want this to collapse? 3 categories of people want to see it collapse. First, those who see us as evil. So, when you think of ISIS and radical Islamists, you're probably wondering, why do they hate us so much? Why would they want to bomb us? Why would they want to terrorize us? It's really simple. Their theological framework says that women that go around with their heads and their faces uncovered cause men to lust. Lust is a sin. I don't want to sin. The best way to conquer sin is through laws that my government can provide. Your government's inspiring and encouraging people to sin. I must wipe out sin. I must wipe out the whole culture. It's common sense. It's plain and simple reasoning. I don't agree with their perspective. But there are people that want to destroy our culture because they believe it is evil. What other type of people would want to see our civilization collapse? The second group would be people that think Western civilization is unjust. So, for example, Kim Jong-il, right? North Korea. They believe that we are unjust. They don't believe we're evil as in a moral battle, but you have to admit, for capitalism to work, someone has to win and someone has to lose. That's the only way the stock market works. If you buy, and you're a wise buyer and seller, you buy when it's low and you... So if you sell when it's high, someone else is paying a higher price for it, they're losing out. Now, that doesn't mean that they're on Skid Row. I don't mean that. But for you to gain, someone has to lose, right? Supply and demand. I create a product that's valuable. I spend a little bit less than it, but I pass the cost on to the consumer, right? There has to be winners and losers. And in a system of winners and losers, there are always going to be people who feel like they are always the losers and it's always unjust. Well, if the system is unjust, then I want to see it collapse, all right? So who would the third group of people be then? If we have people that see us as evil, and we see people who see us as unjust from the outside, would there be anyone on the inside of the system that would want to see it collapse? Absolutely. The people that think the system is rigged. Okay, Craig, you tell me, get an education, get a job, I can be successful, and that's not the way it's worked for me. It's rigged. Everyone is against me. I can't get a fair shake at life. You know what would be best? Is if the whole thing collapsed. And so you have the working poor, you have religious fanatics, you have a lot of people within the system that long to see it collapse. And if I want to see the system collapse, and I can point to a passage that inspires me to believe, hey, Western civilization is going to collapse in this great battle. See where that can go? Where that could lead to? So people think we're on the brink of the apocalypse, right? Armageddon is the same as apocalypse, right? Wrong. What's the word apocalypse really mean? It's revealing. It means to reveal, to uncover, to show. If you do have a Bible and it's open, flip back over to Revelation chapter 1. This, and go ahead and keep that up there, please. Don't move that, because I want you to be able to compare these together. So, by the way, it's called the book of Revelation, not Revelations. Oh, what's your interpretation of Revelations? Well, my first interpretation is it's a book of Revelation. So the book of Revelation, the very first verse, right? The revelation of Jesus Christ. That word in the Greek, that is apocalypse. It's an unveiling. It's an uncovering. So we're going to see something that we didn't know before. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants. What's the next very passage? What's the very next phrase? What must, what? Soon take place. So we know the things that are in the book of Revelation are given to people in a particular historical framework. And John says these are things that must soon take place. So he made known by sending his angel to his servant John, who bore witness, right? Blessed, verse 3, blessed is the one who reads aloud. Loud! Well, that's not what he meant, right? Just read it out loud. The words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and keep what is written in it, because what's the last sentence say? Huh? Time is here. So verse 1, these are things that must take place soon, and the time. So this isn't 2018, is it? These things are taking soon. They're going to take place. It's soon. And while you're in chapter 1, one more verse that I think helps clarify our thinking. Maybe not my spinky. My speech. All right. Reset the button. Verse 9. I, John, your brother and partner in, what do you have? In the tribulation. So the tribulation isn't this 3-year period where the beast becomes the leader because the UN all backs the same guy, right? John says he is already in the kingdom. He's already in the tribulation. He's already suffering with them, right? I, John, your brother, partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and patience, endurance that are in Jesus. They've already started. So anyone that tells you the book of Revelations predicts a coming beast who will be a world leader and the tribulation will start then, didn't read the first chapter of the book of Revelation. John says, I'm already in the kingdom. I'm already in the tribulation. Are we on the brink of nuclear war? I don't know. Are we on the brink of the apocalypse? Apocalypse means to reveal. It's not destruction. It doesn't mean the end. But Craig, I see riots almost every week in the news. The one that gets me the most are the garbage truck drivers in Paris. Why they riot? I don't understand that. But we see riots, right? Escalating tensions. America is about to pull out of the UN in your lifetime. I believe that. The United Nations, I think we're going to pull out. I saw in the news this week we're going to stop sending billions of dollars to Pakistan. Everyone's like, well, what have we gotten out of Pakistan anyway, right? So we're going to pull out of the UN. We're cutting off ties with Pakistan. I already mentioned the Russian spy ships that are everyone's short. Trump named Jerusalem the capital. That's got to usher in Armageddon, right? By the way, if you take the book of Revelation literally, then the temple has to be rebuilt in Jerusalem. And so far, that's impossible. Because no one knows who the 12 tribes of Israel are. And for there to be a temple, you have to have, someone from the lineage of Aaron as the high priest. And no one knows who that is anymore. That will never, ever be possible. So, are we experiencing the end? Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, Jesus says, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. This must take place, but it is not the end yet. So where am I going with all of this? All this hype and all this hysteria? It would be irresponsible, hear me clearly, it would be irresponsible to live in ignorance. For us, as Christian believers who live in North America, it would be irresponsible for us to be ignorant of world events. Okay? I think you should keep up with what's going on in the world around you. I don't believe in burying your head in the sand. It'd be irresponsible to be ignorant, but it's immature to be obsessed with the end of time. And you could turn on television evangelists at about 1 or 2 in the morning, and you're going to find someone whose ministry is all about the end of time. I'm not going to name Jack Van Imp, but there are people that when you turn it on, you know what? They've been predicting the end of time my entire life. Right? Hal Lindsey predicted it in 1988. Why did he choose the date 88? The nation of Israel, 40 years before, 47, 48, was recognized as a nation. Jesus says, this generation shall not pass before I return. Generation was 40 years. Hello? Well, he still has a ministry because people obsess about the end of time. And irresponsible to be ignorant, immature to obsess over it. Because obsessing over the end is only about escapism. I won't have to pay off my student loans if that nuclear bomb hits, right? Wouldn't it be great? I got over 100,000 in student loans left. Man, bring that bomb on, Lord Jesus, right? It's about escapism, escaping my responsibilities. So just remember, it is easier to sensationalize the end of time than it is to pick up your cross and die to yourself daily in the here and now.